The next speaker for the next program is my buddy Don Johnston, the other tax partner in our firm. Don was blown off by his co-presenter. I guess he'll explain that. But he's going to talk a little bit about identity theft, one of his favorite subjects in rants. So you'll get to really have a role here with Don, and go ahead and take advantage of him if you can with questions, because he loves that stuff. So no further ado, I'll turn over to Don to talk about protecting yourself from identity theft.
Okay, so we're going to talk about identity theft, and we're going to talk about a couple different things. The targets and the methods, how they go about stealing your identity, what they use the identity, the information they steal from you for. Then we'll talk a little bit about tax-related things, how they steal it and file tax returns on your behalf. And social media concerns. How many of us out there have young kids? How many of those young kids have telephones? How many of those young kids are on Instagram, LinkedIn, name whatever you want to name? We're going to talk about social media and how we're putting our kids and our identity at risk because of that. If you've been here before, you know I love statistics. I love statistics. I like talking about numbers, because I think it's very, very interesting just to throw out some numbers. So let's talk statistics. First off, identity theft. Two different pieces of the crime. One is stealing the identity, it's stealing the information, and then using the information. It's not always the same person who does that. There are companies out there that will steal the information, get the information somehow through numerous ways and means, and then there are people who will buy that information from those companies, and they will use that information to steal your identity. Okay? Second bullet point down, in 25% of the cases, the victims know the thief. Think about that. Think about all of the identity theft that happens out there on a daily basis. 25% of the cases, you know the person who stole your identity. You may not know them. Because a lot of problems, one of the major problems with identity theft is in most situations, you have no idea how it happened. Somebody steals your identity, file a tax return on your behalf. You have no idea who did it. You have no idea how they got the information. And you will never know how they got the information. 25% is a very big number. Age 29 and younger is the fastest growing demographic at risk for identity theft. Do you know why? Social media. Our kids are out there with telephones. We all have them with private information on them. And our kids are at risk. Not only are our kids at risk, but very young children are at risk. If you have a Social Security number, you are at risk that somebody could steal your identity. You would be surprised at how many identity theft issues occur with children who are under 5 years of age because they have a Social Security number. There are many kids who are out there whose identity or whose credit is already severely messed up because somebody stole their identity, or in many cases, which I was surprised to hear, their parents use their Social Security number to get debt, which is hard to believe. Happens way more than you would think. 1 in 700 perpetrators get caught. Think about that. 1 in 700. That's a pretty good batting average if you're one of those people stealing identities. It's rare that these people are getting caught. 1 in 4 people who have had their data breached. One in 4 people who have been contacted by companies like Home Depot, Google, Target. You know, these companies that are out there who have had data breaches, 1 in 4 will have identity theft issues. Think about that. The numbers are mind-boggling. eBay, 145 million accounts were breached. 145 million. What's 25% of that? Pretty high. JP Morgan, 76 million accounts breached. Home Depot, Sony, Target, Citibank, right? Accounts being breached is how your information is being stolen. What's the most recent one we've heard as far as accounts being breached? Go ahead, you can say it. Ashley Madison, right? Everybody know who Ashley Madison is? I thought it was one of my daughter's schoolmates. It's not one of my daughter's schoolmates. Ashley Madison is the cheating website. Any guess on how many accounts were stolen from Ashley Madison? Anybody see that in the newspaper? 33 million accounts. Where are these people? Who are these people? 33 million? 33 million. Think about the cost for those people who get caught. Hiring a divorce attorney, getting things straightened out. I don't go on the website, but when I was doing a little bit of research here, I ended up on the website. Life is short, have an affair. Wow, that's interesting. That's what their website, when you go onto their main webpage. 33 million. Who are these people? I have no idea. 9 to 12 million individuals are affected each year. My guess is the number's probably more than that. 9 to 12 million we know about. A lot of these people never come out. You never hear about it. Elderly, there are a lot of elderly people who have had their identity theft or identity stolen, or they've written checks to people and they've been ripped off. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. 43 million cyber attacks every year. It's only 117,000 a day. Children and dead people. Children, young children who have Social Security numbers, and dead people. Dead people. Who's stealing identity? Who's going to complain, right? The reason that it's so easy to steal somebody's identity if they're dead is because a lot of the information is public. And you know what? Every day you pull out the newspaper, and if you're one of these people that steals identity of dead people, there's a list of new clients right there in the newspaper, right? Because a lot of the times there's public information. It's not that difficult. So you think you're getting, $100,000 that you're going to inherit from grandma, and grandma passes away, but that $100,000 disappears because somebody stole her identity after she passed away and took her assets. Medical ID theft. Medical ID. What are people stealing from a medical point of view? They're stealing your health care numbers so they can go and buy prescription drugs. And we know they can get the prescription drugs, right? Somebody will write them a prescription. They can go and pay for those illegal drugs or those prescription drugs with your health care cards. On average, $20,000 they spend before you find out about it. Health care related identity theft. Huge, huge numbers. The law used to focus on the fraud committed because of identity theft, which it really didn't do much because we're not catching the people. So it doesn't matter what the laws say. The more recent laws are supposedly prosecuting those who commit the fraud, the people who purchase the information, and the people who sell the information. But when 1 in 700 people are getting caught, the laws really don't mean a whole lot. So basically what we need to be doing is protecting the information that we have. The favorite targets, what are they looking for when they steal your identity? What are they looking for? Their bank accounts, right? That's the easy one. Credit card and bank accounts. Because if they have your credit card account, it's pretty easy to go and buy something using your credit card. How many of us have eaten out within the last week? Is there anybody who has not eaten out in the last week? Is there anybody who, when you eat out, you don't give them a credit card? Anybody pay cash when they eat out because they don't want somebody stealing? You guys always pay cash? Good for you. A bunch of accountants in the room. Good job. So, you know what? You go have a nice dinner at Applebee's. Well, you have a reasonable dinner at Applebee's. You give them their card. You give your server the card. You've never met this person before, and all of a sudden you give them their credit card. They have a cell phone. They can take a picture of the front and the back. It's nice to have that security code on the back because when they take a picture of it, they still have it. You can't buy tickets to the Paul McCartney concert unless you know that security code. So all of a sudden, the person who was serving you tacos today is going to the Paul McCartney show 6 weeks from now, and they bought the tickets before you even got home that night. They're also, they go and they scan the card. They have machines to scan the card to charge your credit card. Well, there are things called skimmers, a little piece of machinery, and they just scan it, and it stores your information. I mean, how often are we using credit cards? A lot. Every time I pay for gas. Right? Every time I eat out, which is way too much. We're using those cards, and people are stealing the information. Birth dates, very important. Before we go too far, I've been remiss. Dan, who's running the IT, Dan has the worst job today, because if something goes wrong here, he's the one that everybody's looking at. It's the first time he's done it. It's actually his birthday. Everybody say, happy birthday, Dan. Nick did that job last year. Dan's doing it this year. 24? 25. Hey, we all know his birthday. Right? We know his birthday. It took, did anybody think that I was stealing his birthday right there? It's not really his birthday, because I couldn't share that. But think about it. If it was his birthday, we all know, with a little bit of simple math, we can figure out his date of birth. So 1 in 4 people who had identity theft issues, 1 in 4, they knew the person who stole their identity. So we're all suspects. If his identity is stolen, we were all suspects, because now we all know his date of birth. Careful with your date of birth. It's very important in people being able to steal your identity. 2 weeks ago, my wife's out of town. She has this huge crack in her window. So I figured I'd get it fixed while she was gone. And I'm working during the day, so I can't be at home when these guys come. So I knew she was only gone for 2 days. I had 2 days. Picked up the phone, found the cheapest place I could find. Can you do it tomorrow? Yeah, we can do it tomorrow. I'm not going to be at home. Is that okay? Yeah, leave the car in the garage, leave the keys in it, leave the car in the driveway, leave the keys in it. All I need is a check. Leave me a check. Put your date of birth and your Pennsylvania driver's license number on it. Fine, let's get it done tomorrow. Leave the car in the driveway, and the next day I'm sitting in the office. I'm like, what have I done? I have no idea who this person is. I gave them a check, so now they have a copy. They have my bank account information. Why would they ask for the date of birth? Does anybody ask for a date of birth when you give somebody a check? I've never had anybody ask. Do you know how when the light came on? I was reading Nick's materials. Nick wrote the materials. I was reading his materials about date of birth. I'm like, what a complete moron. So this guy I've never met before. He has a check, and I gave him $250 to fix the window, so he's making money on me, and he has a copy of the check. He has my date of birth, my driver's license number, and the car's sitting in the driveway, and it has one of those OnStar things. You push a button, my garage door opens. It's like, what, the light went on, I called him, I canceled it. And I had somebody else do it when somebody was able to be home. Really have to think about these things. I didn't even think about date of birth. Why would he ask for the date of birth? Didn't even think about it until I was reading Nick's materials. So I bought him lunch a couple days after that, because I wouldn't have even thought about it. Date of birth is very important. How many of us have portals, company portals? We have a portal. Isn't it great when your name's on that portal? Happy birthday to Don today. Yay, today's Don's birthday. And somebody walks by, Don, how old are you today? 48? No, I'm 47. Just gave him my birthday. This, right? Date of birth. We put it on our portal. Didn't really think about it until this. Are we responsible as a company? What happens if a year from now we find out that of our 55 professionals at Grossman, Yannick & Ford, 45 of them had their identity stolen? Is it a coincidence, or is Grossman, Yannick & Ford somewhat at risk? Or are we at blame? What happened? How did that happen? It's not a complete coincidence if 45 over 55 people had their identity stolen. Everybody knows the birthdays because we post them. And everybody will share. No, I'm not 49, I'm only 48. Or in some cases, I'm not 49, I'm 37. So you've got to be paying attention to those things and whether you really should be posting those things. Medical information. People stealing medical information to get those drugs. Social Security number, favorite target. If you have a Social Security number, you can pretty much do just about anything with a Social Security number. And addresses. The document that you can give me that I can basically take everything, at least from a tax point of view, is a W-2. If I have a copy of your W-2, I can file a tax return for you. Not for you. I can file a tax return for me and get the money back. That's your money. Okay? Very, very important to be paying attention to these things, because if you're not paying attention to these things, things are going to be stolen. That W-2 is very important. How many of us mail W-2s to our employees, or we send it to them electronically? We mail W-2s to our employees, right? So we mail them, and those are coming out, being delivered when? January, end of January in most cases, right? Maybe early February, whatever the case is. Hey, I'm going on vacation, going to Florida. Can you get my mail, Mr. Neighbor? Sure, I'd be happy to get your mail, Mr. Johnston. You come back, and the W-2 sitting there. It's a nice sealed envelope. You don't know that he opened up that envelope, took a picture of your W-2, put it back in the envelope. You never know. Again, you never know who stole your identity. You just know your identity got stolen, and now you don't get to go on vacation because you don't have any money left. Give me that W-2. And there's a great movie, one of my favorite movies of all time, Shawshank Redemption. Anybody see it? Favorite movie of all time. There's a scene there when Andy's talking about these bank accounts that he set up for people who don't exist. And read the guy sitting across from him and says, how did you do that? You just can't just make somebody up out of thin air. He goes, yeah, you can if you know the system. It's absolutely right. If you know the system, you can create a person with a Social Security number, a driver's license, and a bank account and all that good stuff. And he ended up living on the Pacific. It's a great story. And he was innocent, so that's why it's such a great story. Common methods of stealing your identity. Simple thefts, wallets, purses, stealing your mail. How many of us have our Social Security card in our wallets or purse? Not a good idea. You don't want your Social Security card anywhere near the rest of your information. Give me a wallet with a Social Security card and your driver's license, and it's not going to be good for you. And think that these people out there are thinking the way I'm talking. It's easy to get this information if you're really looking. Dumpster diving. Dumpster diving. Boy, back in the late 90s, there was a lot of dumpster diving because you'd run your credit card. You'd use your credit card to buy dinner at Applebee's. And they would take a lot of that stuff. And at that point, back 20 years ago, when they scanned your credit card, or when they printed a credit card receipt, it had your entire credit card number on it, right? Remember when they used to do that? They used to do that thing? Well, they would throw the paper in the dumpsters. That's why they called it dumpster diving. People would go in and get your credit cards. They have your credit card numbers because the piece of paper was in the dumpster. That's how they used to get it. Not as much anymore. Over-the-shoulder spying at ATMs. You don't think that's happening. It happens occasionally. You might have little cameras set up. Change of address forms, hacking information, phishing scams. We'll talk about phishing scams. That one's quite depressing. So we talked a little bit about skimming. Skimming, what is that? Skimmers are small electronic devices that somebody puts on possibly an ATM machine. So you don't even know it. You go take money out of the PNC ATM, and there's a little thing there. You don't even know it's there. You scan your card, and somebody just stole your information because that little thing that's scanning it is somehow set up to some kind of internet or website, and when you scan it to take money out of your PNC account, it's taking your credit card information right there. How do you fix that? Don't take money out? Maybe. Who knows? I don't know. I can't tell you how to fix it. I just know that it's a risk. 400,000 ATMs in the U.S. It costs the banks about $1 billion a year. Skimming costs the banks about $1 billion a year. It's easy money for the bad guys. And they're out there, and they're constantly looking for it. Estimated annual cost to consumers and businesses is about $8 billion. I don't know who's calculating that number. I see some accountant with thick glasses sitting in the back room with the machine going, adding up. It's like, I think it's $8 billion. Doesn't matter how much it is. We just know it's a very big number. Whether it's 7 billion, 8 billion, 1 billion, it's still a very big number. Phishing. How many of us have won the Bolivian lottery for $10 million? Right? Phishing. Obviously, we're online quite often. We're in a business world. We're in a financial world. We spend a lot of time online. We know these things are garbage. But nonetheless, we still get them, and our IT folks can't figure out a way to get rid of it. And I'm not blaming them because it's completely out of control. All these scams that are out there. But where we really have to be careful is we're not going to fall for the fact that Aunt Martha died from Guatemala and we didn't even know she was around, and we won $10 million. We're not falling for that. But our parents are falling for it. Elderly people are falling for it, and they're losing everything they have. So you have to pay attention to your parents and people in the community that might be elderly. And I have firsthand knowledge. My mom is one of those people who, for the last 45 years during Super Bowl, she was absolutely sure that Ed McMahon was showing up. You remember that? Ed McMahon used to show up, so I think it was Super Bowl Sunday, with a big check and someone just won $1 million. I mean, she got to the point she wouldn't leave on Super Bowl Sunday because she thought Ed was coming to the house. I remember one Super Bowl in particular, we went down, and I was married at the time. I don't know if I had kids, but I was married at the time. We're sitting here watching a Super Bowl, and she hears something going on on the porch. She thought it was Ed McMahon. Meanwhile, it was just Uncle Dave because he had drank too much. She thinks she's getting $1 million from Ed McMahon. So the elderly and older people, you really have to pay attention to them. And you have to talk to them about it without insulting them because they're embarrassed when they get taken. And a lot of times they're not going to tell you that they got taken. They're not going to tell you they just lost $10,000. And like about a month ago, my sister called me and said, you got to talk to Mom. And she said, you got to talk to Mom. I'm like, what? She says, she's been talking to somebody on the phone. They call her all the time. And she's inviting them over the house. I'm like, oh. So I had to do it in a way where she couldn't find out that I knew. So I was talking about this. I said, hey, I've been doing anything about identity theft, people calling and phishing scams and all this. Somebody was calling her, telling her she won thousands of dollars, and all she had to do was send them like $1,000. I said, well, what are you going to do? She says, well, I told him to come over, and I'll give him a check if he gives me the money. I'm like, you can't do that. One, you invited him over. So he's not trespassing. He's not trespassing if you invited him over, and they're recording the calls. So you got to be really, really careful. Take some time and talk to the elderly people in your lives, because they're really, really in a bad situation, and they're at home all the day, so they're getting calls all the time. And a lot of these are designed to play off emotions of these people. Give a call and say, hey, Mrs. Johnston, Donald's been in a car crash, and we need you to do this, this, and this, and we need $5,000, or things like that. Or Mr. Johnston or Mrs. Johnston, Donald's in jail because he screwed up again. And they play off emotions. And even though they might not know my name, they'll get to the point where they'll make you say the name, then they will repeat the name, right? They trick you into making it sound. They trick you into saying a name so they can reuse the name later on. Anybody have parents who have gone through this? Couple. Yeah, it's very scary. Signs to look for in this phishing, and phishing can either be online or it could be on the telephone. Okay, it could be either way. A lot of it's online, as we see every day. Things to look for: stress on urgency. You got to do it now, or you're going to lose the money. Generic greetings, misspellings. Hey, you've already won, and they spell one, O-N-E. One, you didn't win the Bolivian lottery if you didn't play, right? So pay attention to those things. Promise or word seems too good to be true, right? Let's go back to our video, Melissa McCartney, right? Hey, we're going to put you on this thing, it's for free. Bless you. We're going to put you on this thing, it's for free, right? It kind of sounds too good to be true in today's society. A couple things, common fraudulent illegal uses. We talked about exploiting the kids' clean credit history, medical identity, reporting someone else's social security number for employment services. This one's kind of interesting to me. I'm not sure why you would do that. You're going out and working for ABC company and you're using somebody else's social security number. I don't understand how you're getting away with anything there. Does anybody know how the withholding tables are set up? The IRS withholding tables? Do you have any, how many, I'm not going to ask this question. Most people who file tax returns in the U.S. get refunds, right? That's why it's such a huge industry. H&R Block, get your refund now. Apply now, get your refund now. Why is everybody getting refunds? Well, it's because the withholding tables are set up so you get a refund. They want you to get a refund, they being the government. They want you to get a refund. Does anybody know why? Because if you didn't get a refund, you wouldn't file your tax return. People file their tax returns so they can get the refund. Plus, they can get to use the money up front. But the real thing is, if you owe $7,000, you're not filing your tax return. If you're getting a $7,000 refund, you're more likely to file your tax return. So they set up the withholding tables so you will file tax return. The compliance already is pretty low as far as the percentage of people who actually file compared to people who should be filing. But if you're getting a refund, those people are filing. And what do they do? What do thieves do once they steal your information? They use existing credit or debit cards, 36%. 21% of the time they're committing tax fraud. We'll talk about tax or employment fraud. 14%, obtain new credit cards. If they have their information, they can open up a new credit card, just like Melissa did, right? Remember the video? She had, 25 different driver's licenses there with different names on it, and she's printing credit cards from her humble abode in Florida, which is where she lives in the movie. Tax fraud, one of the quickest growing areas of identity theft. Who do you think has better controls? Home Depot, Target, or the US government? I'd put my money on Home Depot or Target, even though they had data breaches. My guess is they pay a lot more money and they have better people to keep track of this stuff than the US government. I would rather have my information at Target than the US government. Okay? That's my opinion. Tax return fraud is a huge, huge problem. 2.4 million taxpayers had their identity theft stolen for tax purposes in 2013, and there were 5 million fraudulent returns filed in 2013. That means that some of those people had more than one tax return filed on their behalf. Huge problem for the IRS. So how do you do it? Like I said earlier, if you know the system, you can do this. So I steal your W-2 because you were on vacation. You asked me to get your mail. I took a picture of it. I now have your W-2. I know the system. I have your W-2. I go open a bank account under your name. I control the bank account. File tax return electronically. Get your $5,000 refund. Take that $5,000, go to the Caribbean, and all-inclusive, drink margaritas for a week. A month later, you get your W-2, take it to your CPA. He does a great job, because they generally do. CPA says, hey, you have a $5,000 refund. Congratulations. File your tax return electronically. Beep. That's what it sounds like in our office. Beep. Wrong. Somebody already filed a tax return on your behalf. You can't file electronically. You've got to file by paper because somebody stole your identity. You've already filed a tax return. So all of a sudden, your $5,000 refund you were going to use to go on vacation with your family is gone. It's going to take you at least a year, maybe a year and a half, sometimes 2 years, maybe 3 years to get it resolved. IRS is not real good at figuring these things out. It takes quite a bit of time. The IRS dirty dozen tax scams. Now, this means really nothing to most of you people. The reason I put it up is 10 years ago when I put the dirty dozen up, and I used to do this just about every year when I did my federal tax update, I'd put the dirty dozen scams up there, and most of the time, 11 of the 12 things I'd never heard of because they were mostly large company tax dodging planning strategies that people were doing that was so far out of my ballpark, didn't do it with my clients, didn't know what it was. But 5 of the 12 things on here are somewhat related to identity theft. Email phishing, phone scams, general identity theft, fake charities. We've all done it. I'd be surprised if there's anybody in here that makes any charitable contributions didn't at one point make a contribution to a charity that really didn't exist. You've got to be real careful. Ask the right questions. IRS, telephone scams. The IRS does not call. They will not call you. They will not call your parents. Make sure your parents understand the IRS does not call. If you have caller ID, it may come up, Internal Revenue Service, and you pick up the phone. It must be the IRS. It's not the IRS. The IRS will not call you and say you owe taxes. The IRS will not call you and say, we're going to come over your house unless you give us a credit card number to take care of this $4,000 liability. I had a client a couple years ago who got that call. And it was remarkable how much information they knew. They knew what type of return he filed. They knew that he filed a 5500 for his retirement plan because they were talking about his individual tax return and the fact that he filed a 5500. And they knew information. And they said, hey, we need, you've got a penalty, it's something like $5,000. We're going to send the police over to your house today. We need to get this taken care of today. He called me. He's on his way home. I'm like, what are you doing? He goes, I'm on my way home. They told me they're coming over the house with the police. So I said, this is a scam. There's no doubt this is a scam. I said, go to the police. Stop at the police on your way. Go home. I guarantee you there's nobody going to show up at your house. And nobody showed up at his house. But that's how they do it. They scare you into thinking that they're going to come knocking on the door. The IRS has the bad reputation that they're going to come knock on your door. They're going to take your house, kick you out, and you're going to live on the street for the rest of your life because you didn't pay some kind of tax bill that you didn't know you had. They're very good at doing it. They're very good at scaring the victims. And they will try new tricks all the time. They're way ahead of what we can ever imagine that they're capable of doing. They don't call, they don't email, and they send. When you get something from the IRS, you need to make sure that it's actually from the IRS, because I can put a letter together that makes it look like it came from the IRS. I just take a real letter, type something else on, white it out or whatever I do, and then I can make the letter look like it came from the IRS by using their letterhead. Okay, so you got to be careful that a real IRS audit. And what you should do is make sure when those letters come in, you should have somebody other than yourself look at it. Even if it's a $27 bill, have somebody look at it and call the IRS. Call the IRS to see if you really owe $27 or somebody's just scamming you. It's only $27, but if you do it 100,000 times, it makes it worth it. And a lot of the scammers know that $27 isn't going to cause you to go hire a CPA to take care of it. Don't give out any, and this is what I told my mom. Don't give out any information. Hang up immediately. Report the call to the FTC. Do not agree to have them come over to the house and meet with you. Efforts to combat identity theft from the federal government point of view, at least they're starting to put their heads together. It's going to be a number of years. There's going to be millions and millions of dollars that will continue to be stolen. But at least they're putting their heads together. At least there's some kind of effort. I find it interesting in a kind of a sad way. This statistic of the $30 billion bogus refund claims filed in 2013, the IRS recovered 81%. Woohoo, 81%, yeah. Over $6 billion didn't get caught, so they issued $6 billion of fraudulent refunds. I don't pay attention to 81% because that's not really a good number. I pay attention to the $6 billion that could have helped some program. They're not very good at catching it, so we have to help them. We have to help them by taking the steps from our side, from the business side, to make sure this doesn't happen in the first place. This slide is in the book. Nick loved this slide, so I kept the slide just because of him, just to remember him. Right now he's knee-deep in baby powder. He loved this slide. He's like, Don, I love this slide. I know you do, Nick. So this slide is for Nick, remembering Nick. New initiatives for the 2016 tax filing season. Like I said, I talked about this a little bit before. The federal government kind of put their heads together with 34 state departments and tax industry members. And those tax industry members are the folks who put out the software like we use in preparing our tax returns. Oh, social media. Oh, this one drives me absolutely crazy. Social media. Sharing TMI, too much information. I've got a 14-year-old daughter who's on Instagram. She loves to take pictures, put it on Instagram. Look at me, I'm in Disney World. Yay. She has 70,000 followers. 70,000 followers. We have no idea who these people are. Doesn't seem to bother her. We were in California over the summer on vacation, and I'm on her Instagram. I get, if she posts something on Instagram, I get it. Now, I'm not a guy who's generally on Instagram, but if she's on it, I need to be on it because I need to see what she's posting. So we're in California on vacation. All of a sudden, a family picture pops up. We're at Six Flags in California. Yeah, this is great. 70,000 people. Why don't you go rob my house right now? There's somebody there who's not good. There are people who are following her are not good people. And we're letting our kids do this. I'm guilty. I can't stop it. I try to control it. Don't tell people where you're going, honey. She's got a bunch of followers. A lot of them are friends from all over the country. She might be going to some type of dance convention. That's what she does. She goes to a dance convention in Toronto. Hey, are you going to the Toronto dance convention this weekend? Yeah. Let's just tell 70,000 people where you're going to be. There's a handful of people there, not good people. Be careful with what your kids are doing. Think about what they're doing. And think about the risk and the exposure. Things not to share. Social media, full birth dates, current locations. As I dug into this and started thinking about this, there's so many ways where we can get ripped off. We live in North Allegheny School District. There's probably 650 graduates every year. And you have that big sign in your yard, congratulations, graduate. Hey, North Allegheny's graduation is this Friday at 7 o'clock. Think about all those houses that are empty on Friday at 7 o'clock because everybody who has, hello, congratulations, graduate, they're at graduation at North Allegheny High School. 500 houses you can break into. Nobody's going to be at home. Or the funeral. Oh, Aunt Maggie died. It's really sad. Guess who's not at Aunt Maggie's house on the Saturday during her funeral? Same as it's like the obituaries. Everybody knows Aunt Maggie's not at home anymore. And everybody knows that Aunt Maggie was your mom, was your aunt, so you're going to the funeral, and guess what? Your house is empty too. Let's just post to everybody. Got to be really, really careful. Holiday trips, going away, it's a holiday, going Thanksgiving, walking out of the building. Hey, Dawn, have a nice holiday. Doing anything this weekend? Yeah, myself and the family are going down to Florida. Oh, you taking the whole family? Yeah, we're all going down. We're going to visit Mickey Mouse for a couple days. How about I rob your house while you're gone? You just told somebody you really don't know that you're going away. Can they track down where you live? Yeah, it's really not that hard. Or you decide you're going down to Florida for a holiday, and you call the post office. Hey, stop my mail. We're going away for a whole week. Oh, that's nice. Where are you going? Oh, we're going to France for a week. Yeah, I'll stop your mail and also rob your house. You take Fido to the pet hotel because you're going to France for a week. Where are you going? Oh, we're going to France. Oh, have a great time. You just told a couple people that you're not going to be at home for a whole week. People working on your house, domestic help. They've worked with you for 3 years. You run out of money. You can't pay them anymore to come and vacuum your house. They've been in your house for 3 years. Do you think they've taken any pictures of the important stuff? You think you left your tax return or your W-2 sitting on your counter one day and they took a picture with their cell phone? You have no idea what these people are capable of and what people are thinking and how easy it is to leave information laying around. You have your kitchen remodeled. Guys are in your house for a month. You give them a key to your house. They can have a key, a second key made and get into your house. Oh, but I have a security system. 35% of all security systems have the same code that was set up when you bought the security system. Anybody know what that is? 1, 2, 3, 4 is not a security code. If 35% of them use 1, 2, 3, 4, that's probably not the code you should be using. It's a pretty big number. A lot of times these folks that you have into your house, it's not necessarily the lead contractor, the person who has the business, it's the help. It's the people who are helping him. You have no idea what kind of records they have, past records. You have no idea what they've done. You have no idea what kind of pictures they've taken in your house. And generally, if they're smart, they're not going to rob you the week after they remodeled your kitchen. They're going to rob you a month or a year and a half after. I mean, if your house gets broken into tomorrow, are you thinking back a year and a half ago when you let somebody in your house? Anybody watch Breaking Bad? That's what they used to do. That series was on Breaking Bad. That's what they were doing. They exterminate the house, close the house down for 3 months, then they'd come back a year later to rob your house. Hey, I like that Lemieux jersey. I think that would look really good over my fireplace. A year and a half later, come in and steal stuff out of your house. The problem with all of this is you never really find out how it happened. You don't know if it was domestic help, the mailman, the pet hotel. It's really, really hard to track. As far as social media, make sure you're improving your security settings. Make sure that when if you don't have your phone that it shuts off and you can't get back in it without having a password. And that should be obviously not only your phone, but your computer, your laptop, your iPad. Make sure that thing's shutting off quite frequently. Business responsibilities, 8 data security tips. As a business, we're responsible. Like I said, Grossman, Yannick, and Ford, 55 people working for us. If 45 of them have their identity stolen, who do you think is going to be responsible? Who's responsible? It's not just a coincidence if 90% of our employees had their identity stolen. So as financial people out there, think about the records that are out there. Think about the information we have. We have all of this employee information, including W-2 information. That's all somebody needs. Social security numbers. Okay? Pay attention because at some point the business could have the finger pointed at them. Think about it. If somebody can break into Home Depot's system and Target's system, what are the chances that they can break into Joe's Widget Shop, who has his headquarters in Blawnox, Pennsylvania, with 12 employees? My guess is the securities for Joe's shop is not nearly what Home Depot's is like. And the reason you haven't been broken into yet is because you're just a small potato. Why go for you when we can go for Home Depot? Collect only what you need. If you don't need it, don't keep it. There are a lot of cases out there that we've been reading about information that you really don't need to have in your files. Lock things up when you leave at night. You have sensitive information. If you're not putting it in a filing cabinet and locking it up, then your cleaning people have access to it. The security guards have access to it. It's very easy to steal the information. Passwords, don't have to talk about passwords. We all know we need passwords. These things are all in the book, so I won't go into detail on the 8 things. I only have about 6 minutes left. Tips to reduce your risk of identity. We're never going to fully protect. Our data has already been stolen. Just have to make sure you're paying attention and taking the steps by doing a couple different things. Look at your bank accounts every month, if not more frequently. You can look online. I check them all the time because my daughter has an account that somehow is being depleted for some reason without it being, I seem to be the only one putting money into it. It's very frustrating. So I'm looking at it quite frequently. Because when she calls me and says, hey, I need this. This is my older daughter. She's 19. Hey, I need money for this dance class. I'm like, no, you don't. You went to Taco Bell last 3 days in a row. You don't need money for dance. You need to have a better diet. So you need to be paying attention to those. And I pay attention to them because she's 19. She has a credit card. She can't flush the commode. If she can't flush the commode, I seriously doubt whether she's taking control over that credit card and doing what she should be doing with that credit card. So I'm paying close attention to it. She's a really good kid. I shouldn't say that. She's a really good kid. But nonetheless, I hate her having a credit card. But I pay attention to it, and there's only a certain, if there's never more than $100 in it, because if she loses it, I can't lose more than $100 if somebody takes it. Make sure you have controls over what your kids are doing. We talked about reviewing the bank statements. Review your credit history. Review your credit history. There are 3 companies out there, 3 major credit companies, Experian, Equifax, TransUnion. If you ask, they're required to give you 1 credit report a year. There are 3 of them, so every 4 months you should be asking somebody for a credit report. That way you can see if there's something on your credit report that you are not aware of. Not only do you need to do a credit report for yourself, you need to do it for your children, no matter how old they are. They're free, and you get them every 4 months. Use all 3 of them. Every 4 months you should be checking things. Because if you're not checking them, you might be in a situation where all of a sudden there are 12 credit cards open that you had no idea that were open because somebody else opened them on your behalf. Some of these are obvious, but we'll talk about some signs that somebody may have stolen your identity. The data breach thing, we talked about the data breach, right? You get a note, hey, Target, you're a credit card customer. Somebody breached our data. 1 in 4 of those people are going to have identity theft issues. So that's when you need to be paying attention to all of your accounts to make sure that you know what's being charged to your accounts. Debt collectors call you about debts that aren't yours. All of a sudden there's a debt you're not paying off a certain credit card that you didn't even know existed. Pay attention to them. You stop receiving bills for some reason. Your American Express bill doesn't come to you anymore. It's because somebody else is getting it and they're using it and they're spending money. And they don't want you to see that they're spending money because as soon as you find out they're spending money, you're cutting it off. So they change the address. And your credit limits are maxed out. Or something bounces. Signs of tax-related identity theft. The biggest one I already talked about. Somebody, you try to file electronic return. Beep. Remember that sound? You hear that? Nope, sorry, somebody's already filed a return. Make sure you're talking to your accountants about whoever does your return, or if you do it yourself, about electronic filing. Make sure you're covering yourself there. Obviously, the key is to be on top of things and be reviewing things so you see it as soon as it happens. And once it happens, you need to notify the credit agencies, the credit reporting agencies, say, hey, somebody breached my data, so they know about it, so they can keep an eye on it. Reviewing your statements monthly, talking to your family about the risks, talking to your children about how significant of a risk it is, and make sure they take it seriously. Couple reminders. Check your credit cards and your bank statements. Use the free credit reporting every 4 months. Perhaps the most important thing is helping your parents and the elderly to make sure they don't get taken advantage of. About a week ago, I was listening to some radio show. It was, I can't remember what, some advertisement for something. And you hear this elderly lady talking about, I think the number was $280,000. Somebody stole $280,000, and now she's absolutely broke. And that's what they're doing. That's what they're doing to our, bless you. That's what they're doing to our parents and the elderly, because they're easy prey. They think there's, they get tricked into thinking, they're confused, they get tricked into thinking there's an easy way out, easy way to get money. Watch the kids' Social Security number. Get the credit reports on the children also. And if you have kids who have kids, get the credit reports on the grandkids. And then finally, the social media. Be careful. Make sure your kids understand the importance of social media and the fact that they're putting themselves out there and they're potentially putting themselves at risk by telling the whole world where they are. You have no idea who's looking at that social media. With that said, I'm blinking within 3 seconds of the time. Any questions? I'll be here to answer questions afterwards. And I believe the next speaker would be Carrie and Angie. Happy birthday, Dan. Thanks for the help, buddy. Thank you, everybody.